Hi, Becky. Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
So Bill Simon laid out the case for having a border adjustment tax, which is pretty unusual coming from a former retail executive. What's your case for why it shouldn't take place?
Well, I think even Bill understands, and in his testimony yesterday indicated that this would be really difficult for the apparel industry. I think it's important to step back. First of all, we do believe tax reform is necessary. We believe a reduction in the corporate taxes to make U.S. companies competitive on a global basis is important. But including border-adjusted tax as a way to fund this is absolutely wrong. It's going to be bad for our company, for sure, and I can take you through that. But we also think it's going to be bad for the consumer and ultimately bad for the economy.
Chip, there are two reasons that the border adjustment tax has been proposed. One is for funding, as you just acknowledged, but the second reason is that they're really trying to make this a more hospitable place for manufacturers. And manufacturers who make things here in America, they feel should be rewarded. The border adjustment tax is a way of getting at that. So what's your alternative if we don't do the border adjustment tax to try and make this a place that maybe more manufacturers would set up shop here?
Well, the industry left the country, 30 years ago, and largely because we make pants today the same way our jeans were made by Levi Strauss 144 years ago. This is a highly manual labor, labor-intensive process. For jobs to come back to the United States, there would need to be some dramatic innovation that would change the way that apparel is made. It would have to be, a new innovation that would significantly reduce the amount of labor input to make product. And ultimately, if that happened, and if we were successful doing something like that, I don't think it would create necessarily a lot of jobs. It might create a lot of robots making our product, but it wouldn't necessarily translate to a lot of jobs.
So your point is that labor costs in the United States have just skyrocketed too far, which is why we watch the sourcing kind of jump from country to country to look for the lowest cost of labor on a constant basis? And
the fact of the matter is we actually do make product here in the United States. We have a line of product that's made in the USA, so every single component is made in the USA. Its retail prices start at about $89 and go up to $149, and the average American consumer just won't pay that price. It's a relatively small part of our line. Most of our business in the United States is done at major retailers like Macy's, Sears, Kohl's, JCPenney, and the average price out the door is between $30 and $40 a pair, which is what is affordable.
If you have a border adjustment tax that slaps a 20% tax on that, what would the basic price be for the things that are being sold in the JCPenney?
We would have to raise prices about 20% across the board if border adjusted tax went into place immediately across everything that we sell in the United States. The impact of border adjusted tax on Levi Strauss & Company is it would wipe out our global profitability. And death is not an option. Our only real alternative would be to immediately raise prices. And in fact, a study by the Coalition Americans for Affordable Products indicated that the average middle-class household would see a $1,700 increase in basic commodity costs on products that they buy if border adjusted tax went into place.
That's assuming the border adjustment tax goes into place at 20% overnight. Bill Simon's point was that, look, there are things that would happen. Maybe you could have this happen over a period of years, some transition period to slowly have it take place. And in the meantime, the economists guess that what you might see happen is that the dollar strengthens. And so that, as a result, would increase the buying power in every American's home. What do you say to those arguments?
So I think Brian Cornell said this really well yesterday in his testimony at the House Ways and Means Committee. This is all economic theory about the strengthening of the U.S. dollar. And do you really want to jeopardize people's paychecks against a case that is fundamentally just a theoretical case at this point? Phasing this in over time would be death by 1,000 cuts, I believe. I don't think it necessarily will help at all. Consumers would still see price increases as our costs go up. They would still see price increases, and it would ultimately have a negative impact on the economy and on jobs here in the United States.
All right, Chip, thank you for joining us today. We hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, Becky.